Hello YouTube and welcome. In this video I'll show you how to use Python to execute certain queries against the database that we have created in previous videos. Mainly two queries that I'll show you are insert and select. So you'll be able to execute queries to insert some data into the MySQL database that we've created in previous videos, and you'll be able to read that data from that same database. First thing that we're gonna need is MySQL for Python, and that's a package that you can install using pip. So all you'll do is say pip install MySQL Python, and then pip will install that package and you'll be able to use that in your script. Now if you don't have pip working and you're on Windows, all you need to do is add the scripts directory, which is under Python. So I have my Python installed on my C drive, and if I go into the Python directory, I see the scripts directory in here. So all you do is just take this path and add it to the path variable. And I have a bunch of videos on my channel showing you how to add variables to the path. So assuming that you're on Windows, you're set. If you're on Mac, this might be a little more difficult for you because from my experience, I don't recall exactly what happened, but I did have trouble with this package, installing this package on Mac. So it might be a little bit more difficult for you, I'm not sure, but just heads up. So now that we have pip installed, we can go ahead and open our development environment, and for me I'm using PyCharm. It's free, you can also get it. I'll have a link in the description. So all I did is create a new package or a new project, and I've created a Python file here by right clicking, going to new, and creating Python file here. So now once we're in our project and we have the Python file created, all we're gonna say is, well, first thing we're gonna say is import. Right, so we need to import MySQL DB, and then we're going to create our first function, which is going to be insert. And forgive me, I haven't been coding for a while, especially in Python, so I might be a little bit slow right now. So now that we have the function created, we need to create our MySQL client. And the way we're going to do that, we're just going to create a variable and call it client. And we're going to assign MySQL DB connect to the client variable. So the way this is going to work is we're going to specify the host for this connection. We'll also need to specify the port, and we'll need to specify the user and the password. Now we can also specify a database that we want to use with this connection, which in my case is going to be a QA database, because that's the database that I have created in the previous video. You may create a different database, then you'll have to change this part out. Same thing with the user. If you create a different user, you'll have to change that as well. So now for the host, this will also depend on your database, on your user, on where your database is located. But generally speaking, if I go to the config file, so this is my Linux box, this is where I created the database. Now if I go to let's just cd into etc, I think it's MySQL, and if you look at the files that are located here, we see this MySQL conf file right up here. This is the file that contains my database metadata, I guess. So if I print this file out, what I'm looking for is this data for MySQL. So I have the binding address, and this is my host address. And remember, this will only work on local area network, and I'll also need the port. So let's go back to our Python script. So for the host, we're going to use this 192.168.0.10, and for the port, we're going to use 3306. Let's do 3306, pretty standard MySQL port, and then here we're going to do 192.168.0.10. Now for the user, it depends on which user you created. So my user, I think, is Arthur, and the password for it is pass, which is really secured. So now that we have created the connection, which we called client, now we can go ahead and create the logic for this. And what I like to do is wrap this into try catch or try except and finally statements for this particular insert query. So I'm gonna do try, and then I'm gonna do exception, and then I'm also gonna do finally. And we'll do finally right now because it's a one-liner. So for finally block, we're just gonna say client dot close, which basically means when we're done with everything, we want to make sure we close our connection. Because if you have too many connections open, you may screw up the login for your user. If there is like 100 users logged in under you, the server may not allow you to log in again. So make sure you close your connection. Now in the except block, which is also pretty small, we're going to print out the exception that we get, so we kind of know what happened. So we're going to print the exception, and then we're also going to tell our client to roll back all of the changes that we've made, because something went wrong in our try block, and sometimes you don't want to commit all of those changes, so you kind of want to be safe, you want to roll back to the previous state. Now we're gonna create a cursor in our try block, and basically the way we're gonna do that, we're gonna create a variable, we're gonna call it cursor, and then we're gonna use our client to call cursor. Now next thing, we need to use that cursor to execute a query, and we haven't created our query yet, so let's go ahead and do the query. Now query is going to be just a simple string, and one tip that I want to give you guys is when you're writing this queries in a script in PyCharm or another IDE, you may forget to put some quotes in if it's a string or whatnot. So if something does not work with your script related to executing queries, I would suggest to check those queries in another program to make sure that the query itself works. And the program I like to use is MySQL Workbench. Usually I will just copy the query from here and paste it into MySQL Workbench, and I execute it, and if it runs, then I know that the problem is with my script. But if it does not run, it gives me a place to look at the problem, and then I can just look at the query and change the query to make sure that it works. So the query that I'm going to use to insert this is just going to be a simple insert query, and I'm going to say insert into results. Now there is one more thing here. If you did not specify the database in the connect statement over here, then you'll have to specify it in here. So meaning if you don't have this, you have to have QA.results, because otherwise it's not sure which database to use to execute this query, and your script is going to fail. But if you have the database specified here, you no longer need this part. Although you can leave it, it's not going to hurt you. So now that we have, well, now let's go ahead and finish the query here. So we're going to insert some data into our results table, and our results table contains some columns. So the columns that I have created in the previous videos are test suite, test name, we have test status, and I think that's all that we're gonna insert, all the data. So now we need to put some values in there. So the order of the values is important. Basically, if you put test suite over here first, then the value for the test suite has to go first here as well. And the test suite is a string, so I'm gonna make sure to enclose that in quotes. And the value for this, I'm just gonna put test suite 1. Then the next value is going to be for the test name, and it's also a string, so we're also enclosing it with the quotes. And because these quotes are within another string, we need to make sure that we escape those. So our test name is going to be test name 1, for example, and then we need to specify the status of that test. So the status is going to be pass or fail. For us, it's going to be pass in this case. I think that's looks like all we need. So now we're going to make sure to add the query to our execute statement, otherwise it's going to execute something unknown. And once we execute this, we need to make sure that we commit. So we're going to use a client to commit the changes. Now this script should run and insert something in our database. Well, not something, but what we told it to insert over here. So let me go back to my Linux box here and log in to MySQL and see what I have in here right now. Now the database is empty. There is nothing in here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run our script and see if that works. Yeah, it's taking a while. And it looks like it can't actually connect to MySQL. It's kind of odd. Why not? Let me see if I can ping. And it looks like it's not on the same network. Okay. Alright, there's the problem. Basically what happened is I rebooted the machine, and because I moved the IP changed, I actually use a different router right now. So the IP changed, and all I need to do right now is just go into, oh, we'll do it like this. We'll do sudo vim, and we need to change the config for MySQL. So just, even though before I did the if config and it showed the same address, the machine wasn't rebooted for a while, and since I moved, it kept the same state, and when I booted up, it didn't even see that it changed the IP. So anyway, now we just change the IP here, save it, and we'll go back to a script. Let's see, go back to a script, and we need to change it here as well. So what was the IP? The IP was 10.0.0.131, 10.0.0.131. Alright, so let's go ahead and execute our statement. So now it ran much faster. Now let's go and check the data in MySQL. So we'll need to log in again, and see if we can so now we have one record in our database. Alright, so this worked. Now we're gonna move on to the next function, and the next function is going to do basically exactly what we have just done manually. We went into the database and, you know, got some data from there. So now we're gonna write a function that's gonna do that for us, and that function is gonna be called select. And we can just go in here and just copy everything we have to this function. Ideally, you would like to have some base method that you can reference for this, but doesn't matter for this demo. So we're going to leave everything the same, with exception, with exception that we no longer need this commit. We no longer need this except statement. We do want to leave finally in there. And the next thing that we want to do is replace the query that we're going to run. Actually, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do select, and I'm going to add ID in here, and we're going to reuse everything else that we have in the query already. So we're going to leave that in here, and we're going to replace the last part of the query. In here we need to make sure we specify from where we want to retrieve this columns, and this is where we use the database and table. But again, if we have the database specified in our connect statement, we don't need to specify it here, so we can just say from results. Now this is going to return, well, actually we need to get the results, because this is just going to execute the query, but the results we don't have. So we need to create a variable that's going to hold our results, and then we need to use cursor to fetch our results. So now we have basically we have an array of data, and what we need to do to see what data we have is to go through that the full array. So we'll do a for loop. We're going to say for row in results, and then just to make it readable, we'll do it this way. We'll save row with index 0 will be assigned to the ID, and this will depend on the order in your query, because ID over here is first, it has index 0. If ID would be second, then the index would be 1. But in second place we have test suite, so it's gonna say suite row 1, and then we have name row 2, and then we have status, which is row 3. Let's see, and then we can print out the data. So we can have a simple print statement in here, and we can say, for example, ID, something like this, suit, maybe no commas, suit, name, and status, and then we'll use format and put the ID first, suit next, name next, and status last. Now if we go ahead and comment this out and execute select, now it should have one record. It should display the same info that we got manually executing this, so there should be just one record like this. So let's go ahead and try executing this and see what we get. So that worked very fast, and we did get one record. Now if we uncomment this insert function and execute this, we'll get two records, and that's because insert is going to execute one more time, so it's going to insert the same data into the results table, and then once select runs, it's going to return all that data to us. So let's check it, and it works. If you execute it again, there's going to be 3 records, again 4. So there we go, guys. That's how you do scripting for MySQL with Python. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, and share. In the next video, we're going to take a look at how to do the same thing using Java. So thank you guys for watching, and take care.